The Reserve Bank of India was established on 1st April 1935, and since then, 26 individuals have been appointed as RBI governors by Government of India. On the eve of independence, it was Mr. C.D. Deshmukh, and after him, the fourth RBI governor is a very well-known figure, by the way. It is Mr. Benegal Ram Rao, who has been the longest serving RBI governor. He served as RBI governor for more than 7 years. But there is a very interesting fact associated with this particular RBI governor. Whenever there is a discussion about RBI's independence, RBI's autonomy, Mr. Benegal Ram Rao's tenure is given as an example. You see, at this particular point of time, Mr. T.T. Krishnamachari was the finance minister, and it is said there was a difference of opinion between the finance minister as well as the RBI governor. And because the differences were not resolved, RBI governor stepped forward to tender the resignation, which was accepted by the government at that particular point of time. And in the current situation, whenever there's a talk about RBI's autonomy and the RBI governor taking the heat, stepping forward to resign because they are not able to align with the Government of India's opinion, the example in the most recent RBI governors is of Mr. Urjit Patel. And Mr. Urjit Patel is again in the news. The reason behind this is, after he tendered his resignation back in the year 2018, in 2025, that is after a gap of 7 years, the Government of India has appointed this person to work as Executive Director representing India along with group of other 3 countries at IMF for the next 3 years. Mr. Urjit Patel initially started working as a Deputy Governor when Mr. Raghuram Rajan was the RBI Governor. And in 2016, he was elevated to work or to take over the position of RBI Governor. He was given a term or the tenure of 3 years, which basically means he should have worked from 2016 to 2019 as RBI Governor. But by the end of 2018, he submitted the resignation. And there is a very interesting story behind this as well. Whenever the government officials tender the resignation, they hand over the letter of resignation to the government first. But in the context of Mr. Urjit Patel, before handing over the resignation letter to the government, the resignation letter was uploaded on the RBI website. Later, Government of India, specifically the Finance Ministry, and it was Mr. Arun Jaitley who was the Finance Minister at this particular point of time, who came to know that Mr. Urjit Patel has tendered the resignation. And later, a press release was given by the government stating that the resignation letter has been accepted by the government. Now, what led to this resignation? Let's understand the 4 very important issues which led to frictions between the then RBI Governor Mr. Urjit Patel as well as Government of India. Before I tell you the reasons, it is stated that the appointment of Mr. Urjit Patel was actually pushed by the Prime Minister's office, and the Prime Minister back then was Mr. Narendra Modi. Now, what led to the frictions between the RBI Governor as well as the Government of India? Let's list them out and let's understand what is the importance of this. The first important issue was the surplus transfer. The Reserve Bank of India is 100% owned by Government of India. And traditionally, any company that generates a profit, the profits are supposed to be distributed to the shareholders or the owners of the company. And in this particular context, the owner of Reserve Bank of India is Government of India. So Reserve Bank of India would earn certain profits and give part of the profits. Instead of profits, they will use the term surplus. Part of the profits or the part of the surplus would be transferred to the Government of India. Now the point of contention is how much of the profits will be transferred. The Government of India was of the opinion that the amount of surplus that was kept back or held back by Reserve Bank of India was unnecessarily very high. Whereas Reserve Bank of India was of the opinion that because it is a central banker, it plays a very important role in case of certain events in the, let's say, economy such as recession or a slowdown or the deterioration of the health of the banking sector. The RBI cited these particular reasons to hold huge amount of reserves or surplus reserves. Now, this actually led to the friction between the RBI Governor as well as the Finance Ministry as well as the Prime Minister's office. And as a result of this, later, the Government of India set up a committee which was headed by the former RBI Governor, Mr. Bimal Jalan. And today, based on the recommendations of the Bimal Jalan Committee, the surplus is withheld by the Reserve Bank of India and remaining part is a transfer to Government of India. The second very important point of friction, the Prompt Corrective Action Reform or PCA. Post 2008, the amount of non-performing assets in the banking sector started ballooning. In order to control these particular non-performing assets, multiple reforms or measures were implemented by Reserve Bank of India. And one such important reform is said to be the Prompt Corrective Action. And under the Prompt Corrective Action, if the banks fail to meet certain standards or thresholds, then restrictions would be imposed by Reserve Bank of India on these particular banks. Multiple public sector banks were brought under the Prompt Corrective Action. And public sector banks are majorly owned by Government of India. This actually led to the friction between the government as well as RBI Governor. The Government of India was of the opinion that the relaxations should be provided to the PSBs so that they come out of the mess of NPS and recovery can be done. Whereas the RBI Governor was of the opinion that the thresholds which have been implemented, the regulations which have been implemented are correct, are implemented on timely basis, and this will help in controlling the spread of the non-performing assets and further deterioration in the financial health of the banks can be stopped. And this led to friction between the government as well as RBI Governor. The third very important point of friction is the electoral bonds. According to various sources, it is stated that initially Mr. Urjit Patel was in favor of the electoral bonds model that was proposed by the government. And later, he stated that he is not in favor of the model proposed by the government. Rather, he stated that the electoral bonds must be issued only by Reserve Bank of India and only in the electronic format. This was not acceptable to the Government of India. Because Government of India, when they proposed this particular model of electoral bonds, the whole idea was anonymity. Now, if RBI only will release this and these will be issued in the electronic format, etc., the whole purpose of having the anonymity would be defeated. And this actually led to the frictions, further frictions between the RBI Governor as well as the Government of India. And the last point of friction is said to be the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code application. The Reserve Bank of India brought in a particular reform or a measure wherein if a particular borrower defaults even for a single day, then the borrower can be dragged to the NCLT and under the IBC, the insolvency resolution process can be started. But the Government of India stated that this seems to be very, very stringent measure. Why? For example, power sector companies. The power sector companies, that is specifically, let's say, the generation companies, or for that matter, the small and micro enterprises would be severely affected by this kind of a one-day default policy of Reserve Bank of India. Because in case of, let's say, the generation companies, because the DISCOMs have not repaid the money, they have defaulted on the payment, they are delaying the payment to the generation companies. Now the generation companies would be dragged to the insolvency and bankruptcy, and insolvency resolution shall be conducted. They might end up losing the ownership of their company. So the Government of India basically asked Reserve Bank of India to relax or loosen these kind of stringent regulations. And according to various experts, the final nail in the coffin was using Section 7 of RBI Act of 1934. Now, what is this particular Section 7? And mind you, in the history of Reserve Bank of India, it was for the first time used when Mr. Urjit Patel was the RBI Governor. Under Section 7, the Government of India will hold consultations with RBI, and after the consultations are held, a directive shall be issued to Reserve Bank of India, which shall be followed by RBI because the directive has been issued in the public interest. Now, for the first time, this particular Section 7 was used when Mr. Urjit Patel was the RBI Governor. There were 6 letters which were sent by the Finance Ministry, different departments of the Finance Ministry, asking for clarification, asking for consultations from the Reserve Bank of India. And a lot of them associated with different subjects, but one of the letter was talking about the prompt corrective action. another letter was talking about the economic capital framework. In a nutshell, it was talking about the surplus transfer issue. So after this, there were meetings held between the Prime Minister's office as well as the RBI Governor as well as the Finance Ministry. And in various books, it has been written that Mr. Arun Jaitley wanted Mr. Urjit Patel to continue as RBI Governor. They wanted Mr. Urjit Patel to soften the stand, to basically change certain policies which are amenable, which are acceptable to the government. But finally, it is stated that Mr. Urjit Patel was not willing to change the stance. He was very much adamant and decided that he would not be sacrificing the autonomy or the independence of Reserve Bank of India just to satisfy the political class. And that's the reason, like I stated earlier, even before submitting the letter to the Ministry of Finance or to the government officials, the resignation letter of Mr. Urjit Patel was first uploaded on the website of Reserve Bank of India. And in a book written by Mr. S.C. Garg, who was a former bureaucrat, he says what was more interesting was there was no thanks given to the Prime Minister's office, to the Prime Minister and any other bureaucrat or the Finance Ministry in the resignation letter. Right? So this is essentially various activities or various, let's say, events that actually led to the resigning of Mr. Urjit Patel, who was the RBI Governor between 2016 to 2018. So there you go. In the history of the central banks, whenever there's a talk about, let's say, protecting the autonomy or the independence of Reserve Bank of India, you'll have to remember the most famous example is Mr. Benegal Ramarao, and the recent example is Mr. Urjit Patel, who will be working as Executive Director for the next 3 years at IMF. And in the current context, this is also very important. Why? There is a talk about the President of USA trying to fire one of the, let's say, the governors of Federal Reserve. And historically, whenever there's a talk about the central banks around the world, which are very important and most independent, the Federal Reserve of USA is generally at the top in the list. If you find this particular content interesting, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you like this particular video, do not forget to hit the like button. Thank you. Have a great day.